think right now it's not just about kind of AI for AI's sake, but looking for who can ground that AI in real business context.
When I think about it, our AI is embedded across our stack and it's built for the real world workflows. So where does the AI actually live? Well, at the surface, we've got
Hi everyone, I'm Rob Stummer, Director of Growth at SMC, and welcome to another episode of Embedding AI into Enterprise Platforms, an SMC podcast series where we showcase 30-minute deep dives with ERP vendors on how they are hardwiring AI and what's coming next. Let's dive in. Today I'm delighted to say we are joined by two leaders from Epicor, all the way from Austin, Texas. We have Dan Houdek and Ellen Cox. Welcome guys, and thank you for joining us. It's afternoon your time, and obviously we're early morning here in sunny Melbourne. To start with, could each of you just please give a very brief introduction of your current role and responsibilities at Epicor, and maybe plus an overview of your background and some of the experience that you're bringing to the table here. So Dan, let's start with you.
Sure. Thanks Rob for having us. It's a great honor here. Dan Houdek, I am the Senior Director of Product Marketing for our manufacturing and AI industries. I've been in the tech industry, decades, more than I want to admit. Working on everything from cloud to mobile devices to data and AI and services industries. So I've seen it all. I started off in the software industry in the 90s. And it's been interesting to kind of see the transformation and where we are now, even with ERP, right? Which is kind of like in this second phase of its life. If we look at from what Epicor does, right, we're focused in on those industries that make, move, and sell the products that we rely on every day. So we go real deep into the industry's focus, which is great as well. I'm seeing kind of those trends in more specific type of technologies geared towards real uses. So, thanks.
Awesome. Yeah, my name is Ellen Cox. I am Senior Manager of Product Marketing here at Epicor, and I'm specifically leading work on AI. So really helping to kind of bring some of those capabilities to life for customers, in particular in manufacturing and distribution. My background is really within kind of the digital marketing operations space, most recently working on kind of hybrid marketing operations and marketing involving usage of AI. So I'm super passionate, just as I've continued to kind of dive in the AI space, and in particular within software, about just starting to see the impact that technology is going to get from being able to start to empower teams to work smarter, and some of the tools and capabilities that are coming as AI continues to advance. So really excited to share more about what we're doing at Epicor with you today.
Excellent. Thanks guys. Well, we're in pretty safe hands with the experience we've got here, but we're obviously seeing AI everywhere. It's popping up on every podcast, every YouTube channel, and it's pretty exciting times that we're living in. But I'm really keen to understand from personal perspective, probably to start with, rather than Epicor's perspective, but what really excites you guys about the AI we're seeing at the moment just sweep across the planet, basically. It's apparently going to kill all our jobs and we're all going to be on the streets soon with robots surrounding us, but which is probably going to happen, who knows. But it's exciting times. I'm really excited to be in the industry, but I'm really keen to know from both of you what you're most excited about and why you see this moment perhaps as a pivotal time in enterprise software. So Dan, I'll start with you.
So what excites me the most really is that AI is finally turning ERP into what it was always meant to be, an intelligent business partner for you, right? So for decades, think about it, ERPs had been great at collecting the data and running processes. AI adds this whole new layer of value, right? It's the intelligence layer. It learns, it recommends, it forecasts, and it does it all in context, right? Right inside the workflows that people are using every day. And here's what's really different. It's not rip and replace moment like we've seen in a lot of tech waves as we kind of gone through history here. It doesn't require a brand new system. It makes use of the ones you have. And in fact, it makes them exponentially smarter than what they used to be. Think of it this way, like ERP systems have always had that data. AI is like putting on glasses. So suddenly the blurry picture becomes clear. You can actually make better decisions because you can finally see what's really going on. I think of this as kind of like ERP's second life, right? Companies that are embracing AI today and leveraging the decades of data that they're sitting on are the ones that are actually going to be truly having the competitive edge going forward.
Yeah, good points, Dan. I think clearly ERP is not going away. We're seeing a lot of rhetoric on the market that ERP is dead. It's all just going to be driven by AI and ERP. The acronym ERP will probably disappear ultimately, I think anyway. But at the moment, it's really, as you say, it's utilizing the AI tools and embedding them into the platform, which is really what we want to speak about today. But you mentioned data. We'll come back to that because obviously data is very important here as well. So, but Ellen, I'm keen on your perspective as well.
Yeah, so I think for me where I kind of find a lot of excitement in some of the changes that are happening right now is really kind of seeing this idea of tech starting to kind of catch up to this promise of all these capabilities that we all talked about of wouldn't it be cool if, or wouldn't it be awesome if we could do this other thing. We're starting to really see that come to life with AI, and I think in particular when you start to look within the ERP space of being able to kind of bring that data to life. I really love the analogy that Dan used about it's like putting glasses on of like being able to get more out of the data that you're using. I think when we start to see AI's ability to kind of start to work with the way that employees within the ERP space are working, it starts kind of feeling like something that's this hypothetical or this experiment and starts actually giving us tangible tools and almost like a collaborative element that we can really work with. And so I think a lot of this where I'm getting excited is to kind of see how it's increasingly relevant, it's increasingly getting into workflows, and really kind of becoming a tool that people can rely on when they need it to get things done faster.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think it's definitely front of mind in all the boardrooms out there. They're all talking about it. And no doubt, given we deal with all the vendors out there, it appears at the moment that it's a race to see who can embed the most AI into the platform. However, what is the reality around that? And to give you some perspective, the analysts are actually predicting that by even 2027, so about 18 months away, they're saying or predicting that pretty much over 60% of the core ERP workflows that you're talking about, Ellen, are going to include AI-assisted decision support. And that's no surprise to me. And I think it's actually going to be probably more than 60%, I would have thought, but that's what they're predicting. So I guess I'm really keen to hear from you guys, from the front seat row of Epicor, do you see that pace, and do you feel that Epicor is perhaps ahead of that curve or behind the curve? Where do you see Epicor in that space?
Yeah, I can jump in here. So I would say from where we're sitting, Epicor is definitely ahead of the curve. I think when we think about this of like that AI assisted decision support, that's already live in areas like forecasting disruptions before they happen or even trying to help workers solve problems faster. I think really for us as Epicor, we've been able to deliver value because we've been building our AI on decades of domain expertise, specifically within places like manufacturing, distribution, other industry verticals that we serve. So I think a lot of it right now to speak to the AI arms race that you were kind of hinting at, I think right now it's not just about kind of AI for AI's sake, but looking for who can ground that AI in real business context in a way that makes the data that customers already have more valuable and in a way that they can trust the output from a security standpoint.
Yeah, absolutely. Dan, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, absolutely. Our customers tend to be very pragmatic adopters, right? They're not asking, hey, can you give me generative AI? I want AI now. They're asking, will you help me be more productive? How can I make better decisions, fewer mistakes? And if we're able to answer yes, they lean in fast. Like the difference there is what Epicor is doing, right? It's not a bolt-on AI, right? It is embedded into our solutions where it matters, delivering the value for our customers when they need it.
Yeah, no, it's great. And the productivity piece is really critical. I mean, obviously, these AI tools that are being embedded into the platforms are obviously going to assist, you would hope, with the productivity. So it's going to make everyone's jobs a lot easier. That's the bottom line. And so that's what we're looking for.
It is definitely where we want to see things go. Right?
Yeah. What I want to do now, guys, I want to get a little bit technical. So I want to dive into the architecture a little bit and I want to dig into, what we call the nuts and bolts of the platform. So perhaps, Dan, can you describe where AI actually lives today? today in your platform? What modules are infused with it already? And if you can, I know I'm putting you on the spot here a little bit, but can you dig into which architectural principles guided that potentially?
Yeah, let me see what I can give for you here. So when I think about it, our AI is embedded across our stack, and in ways it's actually modular, I say practical, and it's built for the real world workflows. So where does the AI actually live? Well, at the surface, we've got our Epicor Prism AI, which was announced a few months ago. That's purpose-built agentic AI. It has role-based awareness assistance. It lives directly in the ERP experience. It's also model agnostic, and so that's important so that it can pull the best models for the task at hand. And that's important, right? When you think about how fast AI is evolving, right? These new models, new capabilities, our customers need that flexibility to plug into wherever it's going, right? To serve them the best problems they're trying to solve. Users can ask questions in the natural language. They can generate reports. They can automate tasks. They can even get intelligent recommendations, all without needing to delete that workflow. Now, if you look beneath that, we have what we call Grow AI. This brings the predictive insights and decisions like demand forecasting, anomaly detections, automated narratives that explain what is driving the trends in your business. And that's all powered by our Grow data platform. It kind of acts like the brain beneath the system. So it's pulling in structured ERP data. It's blending it with external inputs, just to kind of make all those insights possible for our customers. And then we keep going, we dig deeper, and we've got AI intelligence extending really into a lot of other key functional areas. So for example, our Grow AI can analyze data that's been captured by our advanced MES systems. So it's highlighting expected downtime patterns. Our CPQ solution uses AI for guided selling, and even on field services, they benefit from predictive scheduling and even parts usage.
That's very cool. You guys have come a long way already.
We have, and if you think about it architecturally, we kind of base it on like three principles, right? There's the modularity, right? So customers can adopt AI at their own pace, right? They don't have to rip and replace to get started. We also look at it as context aware, right? So AI shows up where the user is, whether they're on the shop floor, in dashboards, the back office, inside workflow. It's typically not a separate app. And then security and trust, which is key. That is a major piece of everything that's going on.
I'm going to come back to the security piece a little bit later, Dan, because I do want to dive into that. But that makes a lot of sense, what you're saying. But Ellen, again, I'm not sure how technical you are, but I do want to throw to you because I want to understand, how did Epicor balance building these embedded modules as opposed to, leveraging all the third-party AI services that we see entrenched in the market now? So when you defined those integration points that Dan was talking about, can you give us some insight into that?
Yeah, I think this kind of comes back to one of the things I'm just personally most proud of when it comes to Epicor's approach. I think we're really trying to focus on figuring out where does the AI belong by spending time with real customers. So in some instances, that might mean that we're literally sending engineers in to kind of stand on the shop floor, see how workers are getting work done, understanding friction points that they're experimenting, and then before going through and saying, yes, we're going to do AI, it's really evaluating, is AI actually the right tool to fix this particular problem? In instances where we do decide, like, yes, AI is a good fit in this particular use case, we're going through and kind of working from a perspective of that model agnostic approach that we were talking about earlier. So Prism, for example, has a patent pending LLM pipeline that really kind of is critical just in terms of keeping the AI landscape kind of knowing it's changing so fast, for us to stay kind of agile in terms of ability to adjust as the technology in AI evolves over time, but also even to be able to kind of make sure that we're tapping into the right AI for the particular problem, depending on the questions that come up from customers.
Yeah, that's great. And it sounds like you guys are definitely listening to your customers and they're guiding your roadmap to a degree. But Dan, from your perspective, again, I want to sort of steer the conversation around to a strategy standpoint. And, from an AI perspective, are you guys running AI in tenant? Are you running it in the cloud, or are you taking a hybrid type approach? What's the strategy there?
Yes. We are running a hybrid inference, right? So in tenant, when the data isolation, or, particularly like in very high compliance industries, require that type of instance. And then we also run in our secure cloud. So we can scale across the portfolio when it calls for the context that the user needs. So we're hybrid with both. And then the modularity that we have between, Ellen had mentioned, is just kind of taps it all together.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, I want to switch the conversation now a little bit and pivot towards real stories here. So So I know that our audience, who are potential prospects of buying software and transforming digitally, they want to hear about some of the high value use cases from vendors, and not just talking about it, but where is it actually proven, and I want to switch this to business value. So I guess, which have you got an AI use case that's delivering ROI today? And I guess, is there a way to prove that? What metrics prove that it's actually delivering what it's promised to put on the table? So Ellen, might start with you if that's okay.
Yeah, definitely. I'm actually going to kind of preview a little bit of a use case that we're getting ready to launch soon. So one of the real world examples that we're currently preparing to take to market is actually around automating RFQs or requests for quotes. So we've worked with a lot of customers who have had entire teams that are working to kind of spend hours triaging, replying to incoming requests for quotes. It's a lot of manual checking and a lot of back and forth just over email trying to coordinate a lot of disparate information. We are getting ready to launch an AI agent called Prism Business Communications. It would allow you to kind of have AI review some of those incoming RFQ requests, spot where there's missing information, request clarifications, or even handle responses with human in the loop kind of oversight and permission. But all of it's happening instead of in kind of email or fragmented systems, all of it starts to happen within ERP. So it starts to make this auditable. It connects it with other parts of job creation, just in terms of kind of sourcing and supply. So specifically within there, just in driving ROI today, we've actually have had a number of customers already using Prism that we're continuing to work through on control release as we kind of bring more of these agents to market. One in particular is Olympus Group. They were one of our early adopters for Prism, really focusing on kind of leveraging AI as this opportunity to kind of enhance on-time delivery. They've since been projecting that they are standing to gain 20% just in operations with agentic AI like we're bringing into market within Prism. So a lot of this starts to come down in that space that you're talking about around measurable ROI that just really gets people excited about kind of starting to test and use AI within their everyday workflows to see where they can drive progress going forward.
Yeah, that's a classic example, and thanks for sharing that. I mean, I think the metric around proving the ROI they're getting from it, that's a classic example right there of how this is gaining traction. So thank you for sharing that story. Dan, do you have one to share as well? Or?
It's really been exciting to kind of watch our customers push the boundaries of what they're doing here. So like I had mentioned before, the factory floor, right? So when you combine our AI, say Prism or Grow, with our advanced MES, teams are able to spot these downtime patterns they couldn't see before and adjust in real time. Another, I don't say it's a sleeper, but it's our knowledge agent, right? It's a big one. One of our customers told us that it was saving them, their support staff, like over 55 minutes per question because they could instantly find these answers instead of hunting around. That might not sound like a lot, but you take 55 minutes a day and multiply that across your staff, that becomes big. And in fact, we have a 20-year veteran who's been using our tech for a long time that they said, I've actually learned something new in what I can do here. So you don't see that impact, right, at scale, and you don't anticipate that until the users really get in there and they start digging into it. So yeah, there's been a lot of like hotspots where you're like, wow, we expected a little bit, but that type of growth is fantastic.
Yeah, no, that's really pleasing to hear, and it really doesn't surprise me, Dan. The pace that this is having on the market is just extraordinary. I've been in this industry for 30 years, and this is just, I guess, a time in history that we're seeing this expedite so very quickly. So no, thanks for sharing that. I think it's important to give it life with those kind of case studies. But what I want to do now, I don't want you guys to give any trade secrets away of what Epicor are doing, but I do want to talk roadmap, and it can be sensitive, the roadmap sometimes, so don't disclose anything you don't want to disclose to the public here. But if I can look ahead, let's call it 18 months. Where do you guys see the AI capabilities at Epicor heading? I guess, Dan, to start with you, what would you say your headline feature is expected, and what's the availability of that?
So we won't talk about the flying car type pieces coming by. We're evolving, so when people look at agentic AI, right, they think of it like a single agent experience, and we're actually evolving that to be more connected workflows. So where one agent can kind of trigger another. So think of this, a coding agent handing off to a scheduling agent or tapping into a document repository for supporting data, right? So that orchestration layer is just extremely powerful, right? Especially in organizations when you're trying to juggle multiple workflows. And we demoed this concept at our Insights events here in the US, the UK, and we were just recently in Australia, and we got a resounding applause. People love to see this type of thing. So the goal really there is to make these interactions seamless and context aware across the businesses, and then role aware agents. So if you think of this, right, you have agents that think about either the industry or the company or even the division, right? We're taking, looking at it in a different way, where the agents are embedded and they're understanding not only your industry and your job, but your actually role. So a production planner sees insights that maybe the CFO wouldn't see, or a field technician. Everyone, it knows what your role is, it knows what you're doing and the types of questions, and so the response it's getting, the prompts you're getting are tuned to how you as a person work inside the business. Right. And honestly, one of the more exciting pieces 2 to 3 years out is where we're going with our ERP setup, our migration, and our personalization. Our goal is here from the time you turn on ERP and you want to get value, instant value, we're looking at to drop to almost nearly zero. So the idea there is that you go, it's basically like a fundamental change in how you experience software, right? Where the instant you turn it on, you're able to get that return. So within a few years, you're going to see some really amazing kind of pieces coming out of Epicor and what we're trying to do with AI.
Yeah, that's really going to have a huge impact, Dan. It's so exciting, isn't it, with those type of evolutions? It's extraordinary. But Ellen, I'm keen to hear from you as well. I've already mentioned that you guys clearly listen to your customers, which is guiding your roadmap. But are there any specific customers or industries or competitive signals that pushed your priorities?
Yeah, I think kind of building on this idea that Dan was just mentioning around securely connecting agents kind of across the supply chain. I don't know that that's coming necessarily from one individual customer so much as, we have multiple channels for feedback, both within the existing AI tools that we're offering through, we have an AI council where we are connecting with customers on a regular basis, and even just through ongoing testing and feedback and piloting of some of those new features that are coming to life. I was even sitting in on calls this morning where we had a number of customers who were testing some of the ongoing optimizations and bringing forth new ideas. So I think a lot of it is kind of this ongoing process that's accounting for that feedback and really making sure that we're accounting for those needs in thinking in this space of starting to connect those agents, really making sure that as we start to kind of move in that direction of kind of the future of where we see AI and its capabilities going, that we can kind of account for what are the most immediate needs of our customers and really enable them to be able to pivot quickly when things change upstream, downstream, etc. within their business or just unexpected challenges arise.
Yeah, no, that's really sensible approach. And how are you planning to roll out a lot of this stuff? Are you planning to go, region first, or are you looking industry segment, or is there another approach Epicor is taking?
Yeah, so far we've actually launched for manufacturing and distribution, starting within North America, specifically within the US and Canada, as kind of our lead markets. We're already planning to roll out within international markets, including Australia, probably within the next 6 to 9 months. I know that there have been announcements already happening. A lot of right now, what's dictating that timing is just kind of keeping tabs on market readiness and also ensuring that we are ready from a regulatory requirement standpoint.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thanks for sharing that, Ellen. That's fantastic. What I want to do now is I want to really turn to the adoption patterns. So if we turn to adoption, I guess I'm really keen, and I know our audience would be really keen to see from Epicor's perspective, and obviously you guys are heavily embedded in manufacturing and distribution, it's fair to say, but from an industry perspective or customer segment, which of those are embedding AI the fastest, and what's driving that momentum from your perspective?
I'll jump in here. We're seeing the fastest adoption of our embedded AI in the organizations that don't have these massive IT teams, right? They don't have dedicated data scientists. I feel like in the companies that they already have very highly complex scheduling, coding needs, but they just don't have those resources to put behind building a more powerful type of a solution. So the momentum is kind of being driven by the fact that AI is no longer future looking. It's there for them. It solves those real gritty problems that they've been trying to solve and haven't been able to compete against with bigger organizations. Primarily because it's showing up where they work, right? It's showing up on the shop floor. It's showing up in their workflows, in their workflows. And it just fits in the way that they run business, right? So if you think about any AI, whether it's an ERP or anything, when you're reducing the time it takes to do a task, right? You're going to probably see most of the adoption happening kind of, let's say, mid-market, right? Like it's in those businesses that are trying to compete against the Fortune 100 or Fortune 500. They have the knowledge, they have the growth, but they need that extra exponential power. And that's kind of where AI is really giving them that advantage.
Yeah, that's really interesting, Dan. And Ellen, again, do you see any sectors where they're more cautious and reluctant to make this leap of faith into the AI world? So what do you see there?
Yeah, I would say businesses that are in highly complex or highly regulated industries. And when I talk about that, I'm thinking in the space of like aerospace, medical devices, electronics, things like that. Obviously, honestly, there's a lot of opportunity in that space, but there's also a lot of risk involved with that because it is so complex and it is so regulated. So a lot of times within those industries, those businesses can't afford to make a wrong move. So I think for us, Epicor in particular has been really focused on kind of what we describe as semi-autonomous AI, where it's not necessarily about, fully automating like some of our competitors are talking about doing, but really maintaining human ownership, human oversight, kind of keeping workers empowered within companies versus necessarily replacing them. And so I think a lot of it within that space, semi-autonomous AI is really perfect for those types of industries. It allows them to benefit from the insights and from some of the speed to decision without necessarily giving up full control.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And perception is interesting with regards to AI, and I'm certainly seeing that in Oz. But Dan, from your perspective, do you see any adoption barriers? And you actively, I guess, trying to tackle and broaden the uptake based on the caution that may be out there?
Yeah, of course. There's a lot of big barriers out there right now. I would say the key one is removing the perception that AI is going to be very complicated and disruptive to your business. A lot of teams think that they're going to need, full transformation projects and dedicated data scientist teams to get the value of AI. That just isn't the case, right? Especially when it's embedded into the ERP and the systems that you're using every day. We've also heard customers talk about the trust barrier, right? That's always going to come up. It's always funny. People talk about security and trust is like the number one thing. I've heard that for decades. That will always be a key thing when we talk about data. We talk about where you need to go. And so that idea Ellen was talking about by semi-autonomous is kind of key, right? Because a lot of companies are leaning hard into the whole promoting autonomous. It's fully autonomous, hands off, right? Well, that's scary when you have new technologies and you're dealing with mission critical information and data. You don't want complete hands off. So when we start to build that and we start to talk to customers about, look, you still have control. We're just helping you work faster, be more productive. You have the end results. That helps build that trust with them, right? It moves that barrier, right? Those are the first conversations we go into a sales call. It's not about show me AI and show me all these new features. It's about the data. It's about the security. It's about how are you going to protect me? How is this all going to work? Because I'm hearing all this FUD in the industry. And that comes with change management. That's another big thing. Companies have to realize there's a path to change management and culture in getting your organization to think about how they leverage data, how the governance you put in place, the security measures. So those are kind of the roadblocks, I'd say. You get those out of the way and you show them what you're doing. And again, they lean in fast. They're like, great, fantastic, you had an answer, let's move forward.
Yeah, talking about trust and autonomy, I just want to digress a little bit. In your part of the world in Austin, Texas, they're obviously rolling out these auto cabs and the self-driving cars, which are coming to Oz as well. But you guys are sort of trailblazing that through Elon Musk, obviously. But how do you guys feel about that? I'd be nervous jumping. That's about trust, isn't it? There's these cars are floating around without drivers. I can't get my head around that, but it's going to be reality soon, and that comes down to it. But look, don't answer that because that's going to digress. But
that'll take us down a whole new path. I got a paper on that one.
What I do want to talk about, guys, is those ethics piece that you're talking about is really critical, right? There's a lot being said around, responsible AI guardrails. It's fair to say that ethics and trust is critical. So I wouldn't mind if you could perhaps talk about your guardrails that you're utilizing, and I guess where I'm coming at here is the boards want to know that there's privacy, there's security, there's transparency, and there's ethics. So Dan, let's start with you. What are your thoughts on that?
Honestly, I cannot say enough about the importance of ethics and trust, just not, in AI when you're working with a vendor, but in general, that is a key piece to any relationship. But in respects to AI, for us, one of our most important philosophies is simple, right? We're there to augment people, not replace them. So that's why we have this semi-autonomous design, right? It's a guardrail that we've built into Prism. So as we said, right, users have control. They get to decide, here's the response that AI has given me, here's the actions it's told me to take. I just need to click the button and now it goes forward, right? So automate the low risk actions, and when it comes to those higher decision pieces, we're giving them the kind of guardrail, right, to say no or yes, this is where I want to go. And so when you keep companies and their workers in the driver's seat, you're going to build that trust and that security with them. And then from a security and privacy standpoint, right, it's built in by design. I think Ellen mentioned our LMs are stateless, right? We isolate our customer data, so we apply strict role-based access. Our customers' data is not used to train or fine-tune our models. And because our AI is embedded directly into our ERP, it's grounded in our own trusted data, right? It's not generic third-party layered kind of risk of hallucinations. So we take it very seriously. We've got a very big security team behind us in our cloud, I think over 30 people there. So again, this could go on forever just to talking about trust and data, but it is a key factor when anybody's thinking about AI.
Yeah, no, it's really pleasing to hear, Dan. So Ellen, from your perspective, how do you provide traceability, for example, say maybe audit logs or explainability? How do you do that with your customers?
Yeah, totally. So I think really with something like an AI generated recommendation or even getting summary information, everything is linking back to the source data. So as a customer, you can see exactly where the insight came from, what data did it pull from. We've also built in feedback loops within AI software that we are kind of bringing to market within an ERP in terms of allowing our customers to do things like rate responses, be able to give corrections. Also just that ongoing feedback loops that I was talking about earlier to help us improve the accuracy even more over time. We're confident in the level of accuracy that it has current state, but really, looking to consistently, how do we continue to make it better? So really at the end of the day, all of this is focused on making sure, this information is not a black box. It's transparent for the folks who are using it. It shows where the work is coming from in terms of any insights, recommendations that it provides, but then also is actively learning from feedback.
Yeah, no, that's really good. And I think the early days with the AI, there was a lot of hallucinations, as Dan pointed out. But how do you actually alert the end users if the decisions have been influenced by the AI in the background? Are there any ways you guys do that? There may not, but I just thought I'd ask the question.
Yeah, so I think a lot of this goes back to that semi-autonomous approach that we talked about earlier. This isn't kind of set it and let it just run. A lot of this is around allowing AI to make the recommendations, but ultimately it's people who are deciding. So every AI generated insight gets clearly labeled. Folks can see the data that's behind it. It's shown in plain language. Whether this comes down to scheduling changes, making forecasting tweaks, pricing suggestions, etc. You can understand why it's being recommended. That goal with the transparency is really around kind of building trust in the way that Dan was mentioning earlier around we want to make sure that folks have trust within the AI, but really looking to make it more of a partner necessarily than something that's getting set up and just running without anyone checking in on it.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you for sharing that. I think that will give people peace of mind here. I think that's excellent to share that. What I want to do now, guys, I'm a big believer in telling stories, right, to illustrate customer success, basically. So if I could get each of you potentially to give us an example of a client success story. So maybe start with, what their initial challenge potentially was, the AI capability that was deployed, what your implementation approach was, and possibly the KPI shift that was achieved. Sorry, there's a lot there, but yeah, if you can do those 4 things, I can repeat them if you want. Those 4 areas. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll start. I'll try here because one that comes to mind that I talk to often is Madison Cabinets, custom cabinets. They're multi-generational family, woodworking, their business in Alberta, Canada. So I'm not giving you a US-based customer here. We are globally focused. So they had actually just migrated to our Epicor Kinetic in the cloud to kind of simplify access and unify their data. And then they came to our Epicor Insights conference and they saw the demos and they recognized the hours of manual updates that they had been doing, this back and forth in their processes. They've been trying to manage complex projects, hundreds of lines of items, all manually. So we worked with them to be actually one of our early adopters in our embedded Prism in workflows. And so now they can ask Prism for those updates, those due dates. They can pull the insights. It's all via natural language. And, they're doing it, in their bi-weekly project meetings. And so the results they're seeing is their IT teams are starting to see almost 3 to 4 hours of savings per week on just routine task queries. And their estimators are anticipating right now about 3 to 4 hours saved each week in just drawing and the spec reviews. So this isn't a fake demo. This is genuinely freeing the teams in real time to focus on their craftsmanship. That's their business. They want to focus on what do I do as a business, not on all the IT pieces. So it's not that repetitive admin. So I think it's just a great way that what we call cognitive IT, how it's modernizing ERP, like we had talked about it in the very beginning. It's making it more intelligent. It's putting that fresh look, right, and on ERP to make it more productive for the teams.
Yeah, they're really powerful results. Thanks for sharing that, Dan. Ellen, if you could share, organizations are wanting to start an AI pilot. Are there any lessons that you guys have learnt that you could emphasize for their rollout?
Yeah, definitely. I think the big piece is starting with a real measurable problem that you're wanting to solve, and then figuring out how you can actually solve it within the workflow. So AI that's directly tied in with your own trusted ERP data, if you can make sure that it's embedded so that it's context aware, you're able to verify the sources of the data or the results that you get, you are making sure that your employees are staying in control of the ultimate outcome and the decisions that are being made. A lot of that then in that space becomes, you're able to adopt the AI. You're empowering your employees so that these aren't disrupting or completely overhauling the workflows, but more allowing kind of AI to come into that workflow more naturally. And because you've started with a problem that's measurable, you're ultimately able to gauge better how much of an impact did this AI tool actually have for the team, and really allowing it to kind of become part of how your business runs every day versus completely, I think Dan was describing it as like rip and replace. You're not completely overhauling everything so much as just bringing it in a manner that allows you to kind of start with measurable results.
That's awesome, Ellen. And Danny, how do you measure success before and after go live?
A lot of people talk about adoption rates. That's important. That's just a starting point, right? So as I mentioned, we're not doing AI for AI's sake, and our customers are very pragmatic in what they're trying to do. So we measure our success by the outcomes of our customers and the decisions. Are they happening faster? Are our teams making fewer errors? Are they gaining real efficiency, right? In areas like scheduling. It even goes back to what Ellen was saying about we're putting engineers on the shop floors with our customers. We are building and designing our tools with our customers to ensure that the return they're getting and how we measure that aligns with how they do business, right? So we can actually trace those gains back to the workflows being enhanced. And so that really kind of separates AI from being a novelty, right? It's not this new shiny feature. It's actually delivering real results. So AI for AI's sake is a waste of money. You need to get some value out of it, and you need to be able to show that in small increments. I just saw an article, I think it was in New York Times, they were talking about how companies are failing quickly and they're seeing all these wrong results from ROI because they're trying these big implementations. That's the wrong approach. This is new technology that we're dealing with. Think about the companies that are building AI. You ask them why did this model change? They're like, this is new evolving stuff. And so when you start small, you scale fast, and you're doing it to deliver ROI in those particular areas, you're going to see a much greater measurable result over time than if you're trying to go for that moonshot.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, Dan. I think just following on from that, then let's perhaps try and give the buyers out there that, some companies out there are looking for guidance around, they've been asked by the board to go and evaluate ERP, but ERP that's got AI enablement in it, right? So think about your customers and giving guidance to some of the buyers out there. Are there any due diligence questions that you guys would recommend? I guess where I want to get to here is I want to distinguish the substance from the hype. There's a lot of hype out there, so let's have a chat about that. What would you recommend?
I'm going to jump in here, kind of build on what I was just saying, right? Start with what is the specific business problem you're actually trying to solve. Not I need AI, because that isn't going to get you anywhere, right? That AI is a tool, just like everything else you're using. The real question is, what am I trying to do? Am I speeding up coding? Am I trying to improve on-time delivery, reduce forecast errors? And if you can tie AI to that clear outcome, that's where you should really focus first. And so once you have that, look for the solutions that can actually deliver that ROI quick and real, right? And again, you don't need to have this massive transformation project to show that return. You show it in small increments, and that helps build, goes back to that culture I'm talking about, where people internally then start to build the trust. Oh yeah, hey, AI can actually help me, can actually make me productive. And so you build that culture then of data and AI. So I'd start there.
Yeah, really good advice, Dan. I think people will take that on board. And Ellen, let's get one from you.
Yeah, I would say a big question to ask is around, is the AI truly embedded in my ERP workflow and data? Rob, I think you were kind of hinting at it earlier. There's a lot of noise out there right now within the ERP space and AI in general, AI space. I think when you're looking about, is this working in the way, in the context that my team is already working? Is it grounded in trusted business data? Is it ultimately going to lead to fewer errors, less risk of hallucination versus other AI products, and just that smoother fit for the workflows that your team is already using? I think that's a really good place to start to kind of separate what is AI noise versus what's actually going to drive results for a business.
Yeah, no, terrific advice, Ellen. Thank you for that. I'm not going to let you escape, Dan. I want one more from you, because this is about prospective buyers out there. So let's give them one more tip to it. What should they ask?
Ellen touched on this just in the last one. I think we even touched on the very beginning of data, right? The importance of data in AI. So I can't stress enough. You need to ask that. Are we data ready? Can your platform learn from what has either been built within your company or across an industry community? Is it clean? Is it connected? Governed data, right? It's not negotiable. So it's that old adage of garbage in, garbage out, right? And so if you're using uncleansed data, if finance isn't sharing information with marketing and marketing isn't sharing it, and everyone has these disparate kind of data lakes, your AI isn't going to work properly, right? So you need to be able to look at that, and you need to be able to ask, is your AI, is the architecture, we talked about this earlier, is it model agnostic, right? Is it only relying on one model to make its decisions, or can it go out and use the best models based on your clean data, right, to make the decision? And honestly, that's like one of the reasons we have Grow Data Platform. I really highly suggest people go look at this because it is cool. It can actually help you clean your data, right? So it makes your legacy systems, it can go out and normalize, it can structure that data so that when you are ready to move to AI, and again, now their emphasis is don't go, hey, we're going to go to AI, let's start this now. Like, if you're thinking about AI, you need to start this now, and then you're going to gradually approach and you'll be ready for AI. And that is how you're not going to see these failed projects that people try and jump into.
So cool, Dan. I mean, this is something we see every day here down under, that data is a secondary thought. You know, I think that it needs to be front and center. You need the data to be clean, and don't do it afterwards. So very, very good point. Guys, look, this has been awesome. I really appreciate the perspective you guys have put on the table here, from an Epicor perspective, that is, and personal perspectives as well. It's great to see the amount you shared and how candid you've been. But what I want to do now is I want you to think about a crystal ball moment to finish this off. From each of you, I guess, to wrap up here, you know, so how do you see AI reshaping the enterprise software landscape? Let's just do it in a sentence, a crystal ball statement from both of you.
One sentence, and I want to take a deep breath so I can just get it all out. I'm kidding. I see AI reshaping enterprise software. So I think it's making it feel more personal. Systems that understand your industry, they understand your role and your priorities right out of the box. So when you have technology that is almost personal to you, you haven't seen that in business or enterprise type apps. So
I would say for me, my crystal ball would say it's about intelligence that goes beyond your company. So really starting to kind of connect those decisions across suppliers, partners, customers, really making this smarter, more adaptive ecosystem, or what we a lot of times here at Epicor we refer to as kind of intelligent fabric.
Yeah. No, that's terrific. Fantastic, guys. What I want to finish with here is, just before we go, and in fact, I've been using an AI tool to capture some of the key takeaways here. So I'm going to read them back, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. I want to leave the audience with some 3 key takeaways from Epicor and what we've shared today. So, and I am going to read this, guys, because it has picked it up. But the first key takeaway is it starts with the problem, not the technology. I think that's a key point that's been highlighted today. You know, Epicor's AI strategy, I guess, begins where it should, with real business challenges. You know, whether it's reducing quoting time, improving forecast accuracy, or accelerating decision making, it seems that Epicor helps customers start small, deliver a measurable ROI quickly, by the sounds of it for you guys, and scale based on value, not the hype. So that's the first key takeaway. And I guess why this matters is that, you know, most companies are overwhelmed with all the AI options out there, and it seems like Epicor's definitely grounded in outcomes, not the shiny tools that we're seeing out there, which is terrific. So that's the first key takeaway. The second one that's been picked up is that the embedded role-aware AI delivers trust, not control. So Epicor's AI is natively built into ERP workflows. There's no bolt-ons or disconnected tools. It understands your industry, your data, and your role. That means fewer errors, faster adoption, and AI can actually, and you can trust it basically. So I think that's fair. With semi-autonomous design, people stay in control. We've talked about that semi-autonomous piece. And AI supports, but it actually doesn't override human decisions, which I think you've stressed really nicely during this podcast. And I think why this matters is that that's going to address the AI hallucination fears that we spoke about as well, that decision risk and the change management's critical in all digital transformations. So I'm glad you highlighted that as well. And the third key takeaway is the data that we just spoke about, and your ecosystem more broadly, to give you the competitive edge. So it seems like Epicor's Grow Data platform, it helps unify and prepare your data so that AI will deliver from day one by the looks of it. And looking ahead, Epicor is now enabling AI agents to collaborate across companies, from suppliers to partners to customers, which is creating a connected, what you guys call an intelligent fabric that drives shared agility across the supply chain. So I guess again why that matters is it actually speaks to the future of AI, that whole multi-agent ecosystem wide. It also reinforces Epicor's data foundation. So did I miss anything critical there?
No,
Or did the AI tool miss anything critical, I should say?
Yeah, you know what? I would say this. Look, true innovation isn't developed in a vacuum, right? And so when you're developing it with your customers in hand, when you're on the shop floors with them, when they're providing ideas, you have your advisory boards, and you actually implement those ideas, that's where you're going to get tools that are benefiting everyone. So I would say that just kind of wraps it all up to what our focus is. It's on the people, but it's on building with our customers.
Well, there you go. Thank you very much for that. And to the audience, you'll find links to Epicor's AI resources and some of the implementation guides in the show notes, which we'll share. But certainly for all independent guidance on ERP selection and AI readiness, please turn to SMC. The website's listed below. We're absolutely proud to support organisations on their journey to capture that truly intelligent, now AI-driven enterprise systems. So Dan and Ellen, thank you so very much for tuning in from all the way from Austin, Texas. I really appreciate you guys sharing your expertise. It's been really enlightening, and I think it's going to be extremely informative for our audience out there. So I really appreciate your time, and I thank the audience for listening to this. And so I'm Rob Stummer, and we'll see you next time. Thanks,
Thanks,
team.
Rob. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.